Welcome to the Digital Marketing and Analytics Assessment 2 podcast guide. So stage 1 of your final assessment requires you to set up a microsite. We've explained what a microsite is already, but it's just a few pages which is either potentially selling a product or a service or trying to build a media audience. It doesn't always have to be e-commerce related. You can set that up on Google Sites, which is part of the university architecture and free, or you can use your own website package. We do emphasize Google Sites because there isn't an additional charge for actually designing a basic microsite on that. I think in reality, if you were developing something commercial, you would go beyond Google Sites. So it only involves basic sections such as a home page and key landing pages, and then that should be linked to Google Analytics. If you're not sure how to do that, just actually Google how to link Google Analytics to your website account. It's pretty straightforward. And that microsite is the hub of everything you do, because you always have to have a website as part of a business, and then you link your social media portfolio and other channels to that. The other supporting tasks you need to do in order to develop data for your analytics report is to link your website to a portfolio. And obviously, based on the analytics of Facebook, we have established that you need a Facebook business page. Now, this is actually free, but you need to publish content there that doesn't replace what's on the microsite, but supplements it. This is a common practice in website strategy for business, to have a supporting Facebook business page. And then what you have to do is generate content in that which will encourage engagement and traffic to your Facebook page. And that can also be analyzed using Facebook Insights. So you were encouraged to involve a network of people that you know, as well as people that you can encourage through your peer groups at university and elsewhere, friends, family, people offline and online, to interact with all the digital channels. That will enable you to generate a unique data set and further data from your portfolio. Class members can reciprocate activity as well and visit each other's sites. I would encourage that. And basically just try to create the traffic well in advance of the deadline, and then you will actually have analytics. You're not expected to have analytics in every area. Deep engagement and wider audience reach over a longer period of time would be natural, but you will get activity on demographics and audience if you put the effort into building this up well in advance of the deadline. As mentioned on the previous site, this assessment isn't about writing some report or essay just before the deadline. It's based on a continuous assessment throughout the module, and so you should have been building up your channels in the earlier weeks to generate the traffic. So you're not being rewarded for design. I know there are students with graphic design, photography and media experience on the course, and that's not what it's about. But you will generate traffic if you put in the work, and therefore you will get a unique data set, and then you will be able to interpret the analytics. I think the first stages are pretty obvious, but I want to talk a little bit about what I'm looking for in the report. So ideally you should have around 3 channels. The first being your microsite, the second being your Facebook business page, and thirdly a choice of Instagram or Twitter or another media channel that you see fit. We agreed through discussion with the students that would be optional. I know that a lot of you see Instagram as the way forward, and that's very big within your demographic. Do remember, however, in future, it does depend on your target audiences. Some cases where you have a multi-segment strategy, you would probably use all of these in the UK, including Twitter. So what are we looking for? Firstly, an analysis of the geodemographics and other personalized anonymous data of your visitors and users. Where do they come from in terms of geographic origin? What's their age and gender? Does this have any significant meaning in terms of proportion? So what proportion of your visitors are male or female? What age groups they predominantly fall into? Are there any significant things about their geographics? What's also important is user behavior in terms of, for example, what kind of devices and ecosystems are they using? An ecosystem in this case is what kind of software. This can be particularly important for understanding what types of traffic and what types of devices will be crucial in rendering your website to. Are there any significant changes in data and trends over time? So it's not just what happens in a particular date, but what's happening over times in terms of reach and engagement and audience behavior. I think number 1 and number 2 are probably fairly straightforward, and you will get used to these by attending class and studying analytics by yourself. However, what about the conversion and goal outcomes of your users? Now, I do understand it's not easy to set up advanced conversion goals in a short period of time like this. For example, you can't be expected to have a transaction space unless you're already running your own business. And we can't afford to give students who already run their own business an advantage in this case, because some of you are setting up either a microsite to do with a business for the first time, or you're just doing it for the assessment. So in this case, we're looking, and it's not easy to connect this in terms of Google Sites to conversion goals in Google Analytics. What we are looking for is some awareness of the goals and conversions of what I call stage 1 engagement. Now, there are 3 stages of engagement that I've mentioned before, which can be termed conversion. The first is actually where you go to key landing pages apart from the first one, and you look deeper into the website and you interact more. That is actually a conversion. I think some digital marketing practitioners consider a conversion to be where you subscribe to something for media purposes, or you actually purchase something. That doesn't have to always be a call to action, as it is actually termed. Conversion can actually be where people come back to your website and go to other particular pages that you want them to look at. So it's wrong to term a conversion just a call to action. So in this case, I don't require you to talk about calls to action necessarily, where they subscribe to an email, make a phone call, or purchase. It may be that it's a stage 1 conversion where it's about deeper engagement in terms of pages per session and time spent on those pages. They are conversions because you're getting people to interact more with your website and therefore increasing the prospect of them being a regular media subscriber if it's a media business model, or a more involved prospect as a future customer. Number 4, just a very brief section, any ethical issues that arise from your data. So just talk about the importance of keeping data anonymous and privacy ethics, a very short paragraph. I really wouldn't spend too much time of the 3,000 words on this, but I would show a basic awareness. Now, number 5 is important. So I think 1, 2, 3, and 5, these are the big sections. And finally, a concluding section that brings everything together. That means you summarize the preceding sections. So in section 1, section 2, and section 3 particularly, you have semi-conclusions. I always say when you're writing a report, conclusions do not begin with the final conclusion. So you bring all this together. Reiteration in part 5, reiteration is not the same as repetition. So you actually highlight the key issues from your analytics. You try to establish what's been successful in the analytical patterns and indicates potential and opportunity. And then finally, the areas that you would like to see improved in terms of traffic and engagement in the future. Because don't forget, analytics tell you about the strengths and weaknesses of your microsite or a bigger website in the future if that's what's appropriate, and your social media portfolio. So which channels have the best performance, which pages, where is there room for improvement based on the analytics? And as long as you address this with some relevant critical awareness, that would be great. And then you can have supporting appendices. Now, never put things in appendices which are not covered in the main report. But if you have detailed analytical tables or screenshots where you don't want to crowd out the main report, but just provide a summary, then you put them in the appendices and you summarize them in the main report. It's important to emphasize that the report should be written in Word format and you should use infographics. I'll talk about this a little bit more under the report section. So the report format should be in Word, approximately 3,000 words. But look, if you're going to go over the 3,000 words for the sake of having a very good conclusion, then don't really see this as a big concern. I mean, if you go way over the word count, well, absolutely. It's not that we punish students. Well, I certainly don't, not on this module, for being over the word count just for the sake of it, like minus 10% because you're 3,050 words. It's simply this. If a student writes 3,500 words with a brilliant conclusion, and another student does it in 3,000 words and achieves it, they're going to get a higher mark. But it's important to make sure that you have a good concluding section. This is very important in professional writing and writing effective reports and having strong impact conclusions rather than just an anticlimax. So don't let word count be the noose around your neck. We are flexible, and myself and Camille will take a flexible approach to this. This is a guideline. Please remember that. If you're unsure, please come and talk to us. I think it's important to define extensive use of infographics. Now, what I mean by infographics is that in this particular case, you can use general geodemographic data along with the analytics from your website. So you might have an introduction about the kind of target market that your business model and microsite is actually trying to achieve. And you can have some general infographics about the market. That would be great, but you keep that to the introduction. And then what you have to do then is move on to the specific analytics to do with Facebook Insights or Instagram analytics, and particularly Google Analytics. All of them are important. And you can do that by either using Excel and extrapolating data where appropriate, or actually taking screenshots such as controlled print screen, and basically you can then edit and crop these, because I know sometimes controlled print screen actually takes screenshots of your entire monitor, what you have on it at the time. But it's rather easy then to edit and crop them, and then you can insert them into your report. Make sure, however, that when you do have infographics, it's not just constantly one after the other. Every time you have an infographic, you need to explain it with the report narrative and discussion. Don't just say, here is one infographic, here is another, and expect them to explain themselves. The importance of this report is your interpretation of those infographics. So it can involve audience behavioral and session analytics. I particularly emphasize session analytics being the thing where you have to look at conversion. We have established that some types of stage 2, stage 3 conversion, which involve calls to action, such as subscribing to email, making a phone call, or actually purchasing something, are very difficult in a project of this scope in terms of time and resource limitations. So if you're looking at deeper engagement with the website, that counts for the marks for conversion. And then, of course, the importance of a very good concluding section, which I've already talked about. So finally, just to reiterate, the marking section. The big marks are for the effective use of analytics data in the main parts of the report. That's 40 marks out of 100. And so therefore, excellent use of general analytics data with strong critical awareness of the implications. So it's important, if you want to get high marks in the region over here at 70% plus, which is an aspiration of a lot of students, don't just describe the data. Discuss its critical meaning and its implications, either for positive things like opportunities, leveraging opportunity from the behavior of people on social media, and particularly your portfolio and the microsite, but also where there are issues that need to be addressed, because sometimes analytics is not only about leveraging opportunity, but recognizing where things can be improved. Just as previously mentioned, conversions can be calls to action or stage 1 deeper engagement, such as multiple paid sessions, time spent on the overall site, average session duration. these things are equal. You do not get higher marks for calls to action analytics. It's important that it's at least just stage 1 conversion. It's a big expectation that every student can have calls to action on their website that link to email or to actually transactions. So as long as you cover deeper engagement, you can get high marks within this section. Moving on from that, ethical issues. Don't overthink this section. I will be putting resources on Moodle for you to discuss this. So basically we're talking about issues like how you have ethical approaches to gathering data from customers, such as opt-in or opt-out, which is the best. I think there are pretty obvious answers to that. Opt-in is much more ethical. How you actually manage calls to action because of this, particularly for subscribing users' information, privacy, anonymous use of data. All of these issues are very important, particularly within the European Union and the UK recently because of an upgrade in the Data Protection Act, because of what we call General Data Protection Regulation. And so just covering the basics of these, don't worry about that section too much. It's actually just about talking about and recognizing privacy and ethics. And as long as you show an awareness of this, you can pick up some rather easy marks. Then, of course, we've already talked about the importance of good quality recommendations and report presentation. Remember not to have it overcrowded completely with infographics and to have the discussion of critical implications. Thank you for listening to this, and I hope it provides some further clarity for you.